you so much. And if you are watching us July 3rd, then you're watching us live. And my good friend Chris here has said it's unfortunate there's so many dumpster fires that we have to choose from. And the world is on fire. And the title of our show, too, today is This Deeply Divided America. This Deeply Divided America. And we're going to cover some of the things, I guess, that divide us. And you were mentioning, for instance, coming here, too, you're interested in Michael Cohen. You're interested in a variety of the Supreme Court stuff, and that's just a start of what's going on.
These are just some things that occurred to me today. Just, you know, every day there's another bombshell that you think is going to rock our nation, and consistently I'm underwhelmed by the response. I think at this point there's quite a bit of desensitization to scandal and drama and corruption, to the point that so many stories just go undiscussed, washed under the rug, because, as Trevor Noah likes to say, ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah. And people got to sleep. People got to take care of their lives. They got to feed their kids, got to go to the job, and so on, too.
Yeah.
Charles Blow, by the way, speaking about that, had a real interesting article in the New York Times, and he said that Trump's acolytes, his party, 95% of the Republican Party, maybe as high as 97%, this is not a Republican Party, this is Trump Party. At any rate, can be fed with fear and anger alternatively, and increase the levels of rage and fear, so that his people are just, you know, chummed incessantly in the water. But you agree with that?
Yeah, well, I think one of the, you know, the title of our talk today, of course, being division. It's very hard for a group of people, you know, us, the voting public, to get together and really fight against the powers that be if we're so busy fighting against each other. And we're experiencing right now a very direct and intentional campaign to cause as many lines of division between us as possible. And most of them are focused on social issues. Race and women's rights, you know, what they can do with
immigration, yes.
Yeah, things like that, things that get
boiling. Let's, you know, in terms of immigration, I remember Goering, who was a general in World War II, Army guy, and at the Nuremberg trials, huh? What?
I said like myself.
Yeah, like yourself, but no, well, not quite. Anyway, Goering's a very bad man.
Oh, no.
I don't think you're a bad man, but anyway, it's a very bad man, and he was at Nuremberg trials, and he committed suicide, actually, there. He was about to be hung, but he, you know what? But he was asked by an English reporter, how did you command the people of Germany to be so on your side? And Goering says, oh, it's easy. Anyone can do it. He says, you know, you pick a group of people as enemies to the cause, and you say you're going to protect the country from this group of people, and everyone who does not agree with you is a traitor. And so everyone will agree with it. Does that sound like what's going on now?
That sounds exactly like what's going on right now.
And also, one of the things that Tom Hartman, don't interrupt, but anyway, Tom Hartman also talks about the big lie, and that Hitler had, you know, he said, and Roosevelt said this as well, as Hitler says, never tell a little lie. Right. Tell always a great lie, because its very magnitude will mean it's got to be true, and you say it over and over and over, like fake news.
One of the great tenets of propaganda, of course, which Hitler was one of the
experts. You know,
yes.
God.
You know, interesting story. I think somebody that had some sort of dealings in relation to early propaganda. This is way off base, but it was this. I think he had a no. It was a Freud.
Okay.
Freud relation, and he was he's considered one of the fathers of modern propaganda.
Yes.
And he gave us the notion that eggs and bacon are you know, the staple of American breakfast, and that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And this came from a need from farmers to boost sales of these products that otherwise hadn't been really in wide use at that time. So he used doctors to make this really large story about how important this meal, this breakfast was, and really the only point of that, this grandiose story, and all these doctors that were involved, was just to sell some bacon and eggs.
How dare they do it? No, It's also, that's one of the reasons why they say breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Brought to you by Orange, Florida Orange Council, Orange Tree Council. They wanted to sell a lot of juice. And also you have like the sugar kid cereals too. It can't be bad. Eat as many meals as you want. Sure, we're dying of diabetes too and heart attacks. Right. We're falling down and weigh so much we can't get out. I certainly am a practitioner of the rule of gravity. I'm sure I've fallen down many a time. How about, there's so many dumpster fires. You pick one and then we'll go to.
Well, we were talking a little about this before the show. But the bombshell news that there is yet another Supreme Court seat that is going to be filled by the Trump administration. And it really hasn't, I don't think, quite set in yet. There's been one or two folks that have been doing the rounds on media, mainly bringing up the point of Roe v. Wade.
Right.
But there's a lot of other implications of Trump being able to nominate yet a second Supreme Court justice. As it stands right now, the Supreme Court already kind of leans on the conservative side.
Very much.
And this, whoever he puts in there, we can absolutely be guaranteed this will not be your normal right-wing conservative. This will be somebody, a Trumpian right-wing, which is very unabashedly extreme on the right. And this person is going to be in that seat for life. So we're looking at decades of a very heavily conservative-led Supreme Court that's going to be making decisions on human rights. It's going to make decisions on campaign finance, but it's also going to make a decision potentially on Trump himself.
That's a great point you said. Yeah. I didn't think about that when you mentioned that. Good for you. Yeah.
So, it's really about the only tool the Democrats have right now to block this nomination, or at least attempt to, is to try to get across the idea that it is a supreme conflict of interest to have a sitting president who is under investigation for high crimes choose a member of a panel that might be ultimately deciding some of the key factors of his case. It's not that he would be in front of them himself, but they would be deciding on things like the use of evidence, whether Mueller has completed a competent or incompetent investigation. And these are things that are going to be dividing us very soon. I don't think, as of yet, this has kind of reached that fever pitch, but I think it's on its way.
I never considered that, but several of the Supreme Court justices, or the ones in the past, have had to excuse themselves, recuse themselves from issues that they had a hand in.
Right.
And Sotomayor did that, Kagan did that, and other, even Republicans have done that.
The kind of person that Trump would put in that seat would be the kind of person to have that kind of integrity?
I think that a precedent has been set well, long in the past. That I never thought of that. I just think that's a very hopeful thing. That's the most hopeful thing ever about the Supreme Court, because by then you have an election, and then hopefully it'll change the tenor of the court because of the special election.
What I'm really hoping is that the Democrats act strongly enough. Maybe they can't permanently put off the appointment of this justice, but maybe they could do it long enough for these midterms to shift the House and Senate over to a Democratic majority,
right?
Which we're starting to see. We're seeing a lot of really strong left-leaning progressives start to fill seats that establishment Democrats have been filling.
Mm-hmm. Can I suggest that maybe we have a video, perhaps, of M.J. Hager or another one? I think.
Yeah, Miss Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yes, good for you. But impressive people.
Let's just real quick before we go into the video, can I talk a little bit about her?
Sure.
So she just won the Democratic primary in the New York's 14th congressional district. Mm-hmm. She defeated Joe Crowley, who has not been challenged since 2004. Very long-term.
20-term, I think. So 40 years, I guess.
Yeah, a long time. Mm-hmm. And she's a self-proclaimed Democratic socialist, which is absolutely phenomenal. She's from the Bronx. She went to Boston University, graduated in 2011, fourth in her class, which I think is phenomenal, with a degree in economics and international relations.
Where'd she graduate, I'm sorry?
Boston University.
Very good.
Fourth in her class. Throughout school, she was involved in school politics. So in high school, again in college, she was the LDZ Secretary of State, which is the Lorenzo de Zavala Youth Legislative Session. This is a organization through the National Hispanic Institute, which she later became an educator at. After school, she established a publishing firm called Brook Avenue Press, where they primarily make children's books focused on portraying the Bronx in a positive light. She was an organizer for Bernie Sanders. She was endorsed by Move On, Brand New Congress, Justice Democrats, the Black Lives Matter movement. And here's a really phenomenal part of this. Up until her actual win, nobody knew who she was. She wasn't covered by mainstream media, of course, because they're always looking at money spent. For whatever reason, they equate the amount of money somebody raises and spends in their campaign with their likelihood of winning. She raised and spent $194,000 for this campaign. Her opponent,
10 times as much.
3.4 million. 3.4 million. So of course the mainstream media had no inkling to speak about this woman. She had no coverage. She was not in discussion. And just a few weeks before the election, she was down 31 points. And she's, I believe,
a lot anyway.
A lot. And she managed to swing that up in just a few weeks, talking about the issues, focusing on social rights, human rights, the same kind of platform that Bernie run on. And if she makes it to the House of Representatives, which we think she will, that district is very heavily Democratic. She will be the youngest woman ever elected to the House of Representatives.
28, is that right? Something
28.
like that. Yeah.
Phenomenal.
She was on the Fox News, and Hannity said, you know, I'm going to show you how extreme she is. Medicare for all, Medicare for all, housing is a human right, a federal jobs guarantee, gun control, assault weapons ban, criminal justice reform, end private prisons, immigration justice, abolish ICE, which now 4 or 5 major Democrats agree with, the senators and more. Solidarity with Puerto Rico, mobilizing against climate change, clean campaign finance, higher education for all, women's rights. Oh, isn't that a terrible evil? Yeah, that's what Hannity was going to say.
How did he keep a straight face when he was saying these? How do you read off this list and maintain a straight face while you try to claim that these are negatives?
Extreme. Anyway, another thing: support LBG, support seniors, curb Wall Street gambling, restore Glass-Steagall. And he was reading this. How dare that? But what
how dare she fight for the people and equality?
What she said though was, "Yep, that's mine. Yep, that's what I want." You read
proudly,
it. Yeah,
proudly.
But it's, you know, oh, there she did. Yeah, this is a really caring agenda, but I really like it that Fox introduces her and these ideas. I'm sure that they had a change of brain and said, oh my God, we can't offer these things.
Do you think that while he was up there reading that out, it occurred to him maybe part through that, wait a minute, people like this stuff.
Exactly. Oh my God.
So you said you have her video? Can
yes, we
that?
do. I think we can. Pretty soon, I think we can get that going.
Women like me aren't supposed to run for office. I wasn't born to a wealthy or powerful family. Mother from Puerto Rico, dad from the South Bronx. I was born in a place where your zip code determines your destiny. My name is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I'm an educator, an organizer, a working-class New Yorker. I've worked with expectant mothers, I've waited tables and led classrooms. And going into politics wasn't in the plan. But after 20 years of the same representation, we have to ask, who has New York been changing for? Every day gets harder for working families like mine to get by. The rent gets higher, healthcare covers less, and our income stays the same. It's clear that these changes haven't been for us, and we deserve a champion. It's time to fight for a New York that working families can afford. That's why I'm running for Congress. This race is about people versus money. We've got people, they've got money. It's time we acknowledge that not all Democrats are the same. That a Democrat who takes corporate money, profits off foreclosure, doesn't live here, doesn't send his kids to our schools, doesn't drink our water or breathe our air, cannot possibly represent us. What the Bronx and Queens needs is Medicare for all, tuition-free public college, a federal jobs guarantee, and criminal justice reform. We can do it now. It doesn't take 100 years to do this. It takes political courage. A New York for the many is possible. It's time for one of us. Vote for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on June 26th.
What a sweetheart. I mean, you know, one of the things that I didn't think about it until now, there's no fear in that ad. I mean, it's all the positive things, right? We're going to bring these positive things to you rather than beware the boogeyman or beware the, you know, the MS-13 or, yeah, we don't trust them, we're Democrats, you know. But what a cheerful ad.
And again, her name is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. If you live in New York's 14th Congressional District, make sure you get out there and vote. You know, again, I kind of touched on the fact that this district tends to vote very strongly Democrat, but don't take a chance on that. If you live there, get out there, vote. Because one thing I can guarantee you, even if maybe you don't agree 100% with some of the policies that she's pushing, we can guarantee she is not taking money from the big corporations.
Yes,
there's no scandal with paying off porn stars, none of this nonsense. At a minimum, you're going to have an ethical and moral person who is going to provide transparency and honesty to you. So get out there and vote, please.
I just want to say our telephone number, if you're watching us on July 3rd, the day before July 4th, please give a call to 503-650-0198, 503-650-0198, and let's hear your views, your thoughts, and so on too. But what a darling person! I mean, really energetic, sweet, and you know, just
she takes no crap. So now that she is in the limelight, you know, before she got zero attention, she's going to get it now. The right wing now that she is their opponent, the smears will start. The bad mouthing, the down talking will start.
They've tried some smears about where she was raised and so on.
So strong to it. She responded strongly. It's
good for her.
Good for her.
Would you like to see another female candidate for office? We can maybe take a look at MJ. Very, very impressive person. And I do not want to mess.
She's my sister in arms.
Oh, yes. Helicopter, rescued people from the ground and so on.
Yeah.
But very, very impressive. Don't mess with these ladies. Oh, we disappeared, which is good. I wanted to lose weight, so.
Well, while we're getting that up,
the ghost,
just
here we are.
This is a story about doors. A lot of them. And that's me, MJ Hagar.
Have you seen this one?
This is a story about doors. A lot of them. And that. This is a story about doors. A lot of them. And that's me, MJ Hagar, an Air Force combat veteran and a mom. This door behind me is from my Pave Hawk helicopter. It's all that's left of the aircraft that I was flying that day. I was on a rescue mission in Afghanistan as a combat search and rescue pilot. I heard the windshield crack and realized I'd been shot. But I continued the mission and airlifted the patients out. After taking even more fire, we crashed a few miles away. But my story begins much earlier. One of my first memories was of a door, but it was my dad throwing my mom through a glass. 3 years later, Mom got the courage to walk out the door, and she opened a new one for my sister and me here in Texas. And it was here that I put my foot on the gas and followed my dream to be a pilot. And that meant opening, pushing, sometimes kicking through every door that was in my way. I signed up for ROTC at UT. Then I was commissioned as an officer in the Air Force. I served 5 years in aircraft maintenance, working on the F-16 and the B-2. I managed to get one of only a handful of slots for flight school. Then I spent a year training to fly. I flew water drops over wildfires in California, and eventually eventually served 3 tours in Afghanistan. And then, the crash. 2 Army helicopters rescued us from the wreckage. I strapped myself to the skids and returned fire on the Taliban while we flew to safety. That got me a Purple Heart, and I became the 2nd woman ever awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross with Valor. But after that, the door closed. Injured and unable to fly, I was barred from my next career choice because I was a woman. So I came home. I worked in healthcare and business, I got married, and started my family.
Wait, barred because I was a woman? That's ridiculous.
So I sued the Pentagon, but not just about that job, about the ban on women serving in all ground combat jobs. And I went to DC to lobby Congress, but door after door was slammed in my face. I heard things like, my boss agrees with you, but you aren't in a position to do anything for him. You're not one of our donors. Well, eventually,
we are eliminating the direct ground combat exclusion rule for women.
We won. And that opened the door for hundreds of thousands of women to compete for elite ground combat jobs. A major victory for our military.
Hold on, back up a minute. Not one of his donors? That's not how this is supposed to work.
One of those closed doors was my congressman, Tea Party Republican John Carter. Apparently, being his constituent and a veteran wasn't enough to get a meeting. I guess I also needed to be a donor. So now I'm running against him, taking on a system that cares more about campaign donors and political parties than protecting our country. Congressman Carter hasn't had a tough race his entire career. So,
we'll show him tough, then we'll show him the door.
That ad gives me chills.
That was an incredible ad. When I saw that, I was, oh my gosh. I think I was looking at Democratic Underground when I saw it. And it was just, what an ad.
Yeah.
Gee whiz.
Great story.
Yeah, and just the enthusiasm as well, and we can do. And I'm not going to try and stop either of these ladies from,
That's
doing what they
exactly
want to
the
do.
type of person that you want defending you. Someone that fights that hard for, what she believes in and her values is exactly the kind of person that you want to vote for. Because they're going to be that same way for you. They're going to support you in that same way.
Also, instead of brandishing arms and shooting at something, they have children in their arms.
Right.
I mean, I think that's just great. I mean, supporting the family and so on, too.
Right.
Remember that, gosh.
But wait a minute, aren't Democrats against, they hate the military, right? And they hate guns.
Yeah,
and all
that's
these
right,
things.
that's right. It turned, McGovern, who was surely disliked, was a B-17 bomber, as was Jimmy Stewart, who's also a Democrat, And meanwhile, Ronald Reagan stayed the hell out of the conflict. I mean, but advertising, as you say, propaganda can do a whole lot, even if it's totally wrong. Let's get back to another dumpster fire.
Okay. Before we move away, because we had come into this talking about that seat, and I just want to remind everybody this, and let's really drive this home. Right now, we are 49 to 51 minority in Congress.
Senate. Yeah, Senate.
In the Senate. And we need that majority if we're going to block Mr. Trump, block President Trump.
Subpoena, investigate.
Anything at all. So as these elections come up and these midterms come up, and you're one of the folks that usually stays out of these kinds of elections, please get out there. Because if you don't do it, someone else is going to take that vote for you. And you might not like how it turns out. I know I didn't like how it turned out this last time. I think, what was it, 47 million didn't vote in the presidential election?
Nationally?
Nationally, yeah.
I'm sure. I mean, no, I'm sure a lot more than that. I mean, only half voted, something like that. So and I think there were 40 million that voted. So therefore, that again. But
Amazing.
But also, that was a very bizarre thing. So many people knew that Hillary was going to win. I assure people that Hillary was, so therefore, and you can say, well, as a protest vote, I'm going to vote for Trump. And, that's understandable, but it cost us the country.
Yeah.
Okay, dumpster fire, another one. So we had this Indianapolis shooting, right? 5 people getting killed.
At the Gazette, right?
Yeah. And this follows Trump saying, fake news, they're all fake, don't believe them, they're liars and liars. So he has so promoted the view that newspaper people are scum of the earth. They're opposed to him. With a tribal loyalty, then people have this great hatred for newspapers in general, media in general, because they're so pro-Trump. But What a disgusting thing for the President of the United States, although I hate to call him president. I mean, for, you know, the leader of the, well, I hate to call him the leader, too. Anyway, there's you know, I don't know what to call him. But
unfortunately, that is who he is, though.
Yeah.
You know, he clearly doesn't do it well, but that's the position he's in.
When I think of dignity, when I think of planning, when I think of someone caring, I do not think of Trump. No. I mean, it's just, he cannot plan for anything. He cannot even read any of the works of the 4 Supreme Court justices that he interviewed earlier today. He just cannot do that. No. And yet he makes these things, while he's guided by right-wing
But we're lucky, because that incompetence follows him not only in his presidency, but he's an incompetent criminal, too.
I hope so.
And hopefully that's what brings
From your lips to God's ears. From your lips to God's ears, yeah.
You know, speaking of incompetency, Mr. Pruitt.
Oh, yes.
You want to talk about him?
You can. Well, did you see this woman? She was being interviewed on MSNBC today. And she was the one who approached them in the airport with her baby.
Right.
And you know,
at the restaurant.
Yeah, and you should resign, Mr. Pruitt. You know, my child and I are interested in the environment, you know, in the country, in climate change, and you're not. You know, you should get rid of that. But it was a real interesting interview with her on MSNBC today.
I didn't see the interview, but I did see the video of her confronting him. Yeah. And man, I just want to say how wonderful that was. She came up with, clearly she had notes in her hand, so she prepared, she thought this through. This wasn't a bashing. She didn't come out there with vitriol,
swearing, yeah.
You know, definitely showed the civility that the right wing seems to keep yelling at us for. But she came out with points, reasons, explanations. And man, there's a lot of respect for her. She did a fantastic job.
But you also noted something today that people mentioned about Pruitt, the records.
Yeah, so, I mean, in general, Scott Pruitt is a dumpster fire on his own. Before he became the head of the EPA, he was well known for his anti-EPA stance and for his many lawsuits against the EPA. So of course that's the person that Trump decides to put in charge of it, the person that has been suing it and wants to see it gone.
Like DeVos for education. But an
Right. But there's the interesting thing about Scott Pruitt is this man has a laundry list of scandals. And it doesn't seem to faze this man at all. And on top of that, and we'll go over a couple of those. Instructed his aides to try to get his wife a $200,000 job. Has his aides do personal tasks. Spent $43,000 on a soundproof phone booth in his office because apparently, as the head of the EPA, it's a very secretive job protecting the environment. This is something I just found out today. He installed biometric locks on his office doors at the cost of $5,700. As the head of the why? Why all this secrecy?
Because he's a paranoid creep. Yeah.
$105,000 on first-class flights. Demands flashing lights and sirens to get through traffic so we can get to dinner on time.
Yeah, he was told by his driver that they couldn't do that, and that driver was dismissed, I think. Yeah. And how about the $10,000, $15,000 for bulletproof underwear? I mean,
the tactical pants?
Yes, yes.
I mean, it's absolutely amazing. I have a list here. I'm not going to go through all of it.
No, continue a bit. This is fun.
$100,000 on a trip to Morocco. Now, here's the funny thing about this story.
Jesus.
There was nothing really going on in Morocco, so he looked for something. He wanted to take him and his wife a trip to Morocco.
Yes.
So he found a way to relate it to his job. But did he fly there, take care of business, and leave? No. He took a vacation there at a $100,000 cost to us, the taxpayers.
How about, you know, he rented this house, supposedly, for $50 a night if he was in town.
Right.
The owner of that house was a lobbyist for an energy company, Liquid Gas, I think it was.
Yes.
So he flies over and he helps them do the deal on Liquid Gas. I think they make a lot of money, but conflict of interest, what the hell is that?
Fossil fuels?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, it's just... This one is a joke. I mean, it has to be.
Right.
Using his position to try to get his wife a Chick-fil-A franchise.
Yes, I heard that several times. Yeah.
And
how about the bed from the Trump hotel?
Yeah, a used bed.
Yeah.
Used bed. He had his aides try to go purchase a Trump mattress, used Trump mattress for whatever reason. And then he used his security detail, which I believe is a branch of the Secret Service, right?
Yeah, I think so.
To help him find a very special lotion from the Ritz-Carlton.
Oh, that's right.
Really
that's
liked.
right. Soothing the hands,
Moisturizing lotion, yeah. But what came out today was that he has, so far that they've found is 3 different calendars. The public calendar, the secret calendar, and the super secret calendar. And he regularly has his aides, under his direction, in his own office, scrub these calendars to erase meetings that he finds untowards or that might be damaging to his reputation. And this is...
The Records Act. The Records Act is very important.
And this is what might get him, actually, all this stuff apparently doesn't matter. But apparently this is what might be able to get him out because you're not allowed to destroy or otherwise alter government records. And then after all of this, apparently he has approached Trump, recommended that Trump fire Jeff Sessions, and replace him with himself.
And then after 120 days, he could go and run for office from his own state.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, no, this guy,
This man is a horrible, horrible person. Should not be in this position to begin with. But he's exactly Trump's kind of guy. Fully corrupt, shameless.
Well, Trump doesn't have to break him in. I mean, he's fully broken, and he's a greedy son of a gun.
Yeah. And it's not a bug; it's a feature.
I like the idea too that he said I have to fly first class because someone yelled at me at the airport once.
Right.
Yeah, that's because you're doing shitty stuff. I hope they're going to yell at you.
Right.
I mean, gee, if we don't raise our voices against the despoilation of the United States environment, the whole thing. But they yelled at me. They yelled at me. Oh, no.
It really reminds me. The story of these pastors, these big evangelical pastors,
yes,
that have really nice jets. Apparently, God speaks to them and tells them to buy jets so they can get around faster.
Also, God tells them to have a church free on taxes. I mean, you can't be taxed, so therefore you accumulate money. Pat Robertson, for instance, made a lot of money off blood diamonds. He's a billionaire. Oh, yeah. Blood diamonds.
But they said a similar thing. They said that God wants them to fly in their own private jet because he can't have them in coach with the demons. The demons, which is us, regular folk, or the demons.
I can feel it coming out.
Really similar to Scott Pruitt's. I can't be with the regular folk because they impede on my comfort level.
Or maybe they fart occasionally. They get angry when people should get angry.
Well, when you take over an incredibly important position like the head of the Environmental Protection Agency, which, by the way, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, we all live in the same environment and are subject to its state. But when you put someone in there that not only doesn't produce a functioning department, but actively tries to dismantle and oppose said department, that's just one of the worst. He's just the worst.
Also, one of the things that Thom Hartmann regularly does on his shows, when someone says, you know, we have too many unnecessary regulations, Tom asks, what regulations are unnecessary? Please tell me what regulations are unnecessary. And people generally can't come up with any darn thing at all.
Well, people forget why regulations are made to begin with.
Well, they're protection. So if we're going to destroy...
Us.
Yes. So
for us,
you're
not for them, for us.
Yeah.
They're put in place because corporations, as they're supposed to, for
maximize their profit.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And the regulations are to make sure that they don't maximize their profits at the expense of American taxpayers. So when Trump tries to say that, oh, I'm doing such great things in reducing regulations, that's a benefit to the corporations. It's not a benefit to us. Those were put there because somebody died, got ill, or something bad happened.
Or a high probability of it. Right. We don't wait for it.
People said, hey, we need to fix this and protect ourselves. So the government made these regulations to protect us. And now these folks are cheering for them to go away.
Well, Pruitt's first major accomplishment was to rescind the elimination of dumping of coal ash in rivers in America. So the coal ash in the rivers really contribute to, among other things, cancer, other problems, you know, just eviscerating the fish population and so on too. But downriver, if you're going to try and drink water from the stream, this is an awful thing.
So and who does that benefit? So
Big
if
oil.
you think about
big
that,
fossil
the
fuel.
only reason that a corporation will benefit, because it's cheaper. It's cheaper for them to dump it rather than process it properly. I mean, there's just no shame in this administration. And clearly everything's, at the end of the day, about the dollar.
You know, I have a little
for their dollar.
I have a little graph here that says people increasingly believe that the government is run by big interest at the expense of everyone else. So this is this one says, you know, the public interest be darned that it's corporations. This is from a site that talks about End Citizens United.
Okay.
And who it is, and it shows that the people know what's going on, but unfortunately,
we have no voice.
Well, finance reforms. You know, I mean,
Right.
the people are right in that the big contributions, the billionaires, the corporations control the money. I mean, and therefore
And the
they're
money
really,
controls
really.
our government.
Yep. On the Tom Hartman show 4 years ago, Jimmy Carter said, "We don't live in a democracy anymore. We live in an oligarchy with money controlling everything."
Right.
And I agree with that. Citizens United was brought to us by right-wing cranks, and now we're going to get another right-wing crank. So that, I mean, when Trump's person goes through, hopefully your point is absolutely correct that he should not, or she should not have any voice whatsoever in Trump. And so therefore has to recuse
at a minimum,
himself.
if he does get this person into that office, at a minimum, they should not be part of any sort of Supreme Court decision that relates to the Russia meddling, collusion, or Trump's money laundering, the Stormy Daniels case, any of this. Speaking of
Stormy, wait, I know before that dumpster fire. Let us say who we are. We are Progressive Radio on TV. We meet the first Tuesday of the month. There we are, Willamette Falls Community Media Center, 1101 Jackson Street, Oregon City, 97045. If you have any interest in putting on a show, wonderful people here, wonderful people. Give a call to 503-650-0275, 503-650-0275. Thanks, Marv. Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, guys.
And also just looking at this wonderful kitchen that's through this wall here, that now it's going to be open pretty soon. So they're going to have cooking demonstrations and classes, and really looks good.
Do you think maybe after their class is over, they might
I hope so.
for us, for our show?
I bet we'll have to come back for that. They're just putting it together very carefully with regulation, following code. And
I like sushi.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I like everything with the calorie in it. But anyway, let's go back to the now with the immigration issue. Trump apparently came out with a new edict today. And he's separating adults and saying, get out of the country right now. You can take your child with you. You don't have to, but get the hell out now. What Trump is doing is saying that if you are afraid of violence, or including gangs and so on too, that's not an excuse for being in the country. It always was until 6 months ago. But Trump has rewritten the, inhumanely. He is not happy unless he hears the cries of kids, I think. He really, I mean, just an inhumane kind of guy. Steve Bannon, too. Also, you wonder what people, how his followers can put up with that as a...
That's what they want.
Yes.
It's the future. That's why they like him.
Yeah. Well, he's also changed them enough in MS-13. MS-13 is such a trivial part of gang in general in the United States. You know where MS-13 started?
Prisons.
Los Angeles, right? Los Angeles, yeah. Young kids there. Then they were kicked out of the country, Nicaragua and so on too, then they started that. Some of the retired MS-13s want to come to the United States now because they know how terrible it is there. They want to bring their families.
People forget that American organized crime was not started by Mexicans or the Italian mafia. It was started by Americans and was a major result of the Prohibition era.
Yes.
Where when alcohol was prohibited, here was this product that Americans really liked and didn't want to get rid of, and it was the first case of like true organized American crime because they needed infrastructure to get this booze around the country. But I mean, we pioneered the modern organized crime syndicate. And
one of the things that Ocasio talked about too, Alexandria, is private prisons, doing away with private prisons. I mean, and private prisons, One of the things that prison industry does, yes, one of the things that private prisons do is that they try to pass laws that continue criminalization of drugs and so on too, harsher sentences because they can instantly make more money.
Yes.
In this, I have a poll of likely voters to 2016 as to what people will vote for. I think we went over this a bit. 79% of the American people want to allow government to negotiate drug prices. 78% want to give students low interest rates as big banks. Universal PK is 77% and so on too. But ending private prisons is far over 50, I think far over 60%. It just makes sense. By the way, good news.
Yeah.
I shared some good news with you.
Okay.
And the good news is Nevada traffic deaths dropped 10% in the first year of recreational marijuana.
I would have thought.
Yeah, I think one of the problems with recreational marijuana, if you're driving, is that you don't go fast enough. So I mean, you putter along. It's.
Well, I mean, let me say, I definitely don't condone any sort of inebriated
intoxicants,
driving.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's without question that alcohol, a very completely legal and well-loved American pastime, is much more dangerous when you're trying to do anything important or operate any sort of machinery than cannabis is. And a lot of folks, when they have a choice between using alcohol or using cannabis, they tend to use cannabis.
You know, let me just go over a couple of statistics. Sure. There's a terrific book on the story behind marijuana, I think it's called, something like that. There was a head of Seattle Police Department. He said one of the things he regularly asked people is, other chiefs of police is, when was the last time you arrested anyone for an assault with marijuana? And they say, you know, it never happens. Right. And when was the last time that you arrested anyone for being drunk and assaultive? A lot of them look at their watch. You know, it was because that happens so frequently. There is very, very, very little spousal abuse with marijuana. Right. Maybe someone, you know, your wife takes your joint.
Well, it's generally not considered a contributing factor like alcohol is.
No, extremely. No, but it's a soporific. It's a sedative. It's a mellow. You know, maybe you threaten a hero sandwich or a pizza, but you don't threaten people. It's also people who smoke marijuana live longer.
Marijuana is very dangerous for snack food.
Yes, for that. Well, actually, people smoke a lot of marijuana. Just the statistics show that they're actually slightly lighter than people who don't. Yeah, so it's not. It's over. But anyway, my point is that thank God that somehow the prison lobby hopefully is failing, and I just find it grotesque. You know how that started? It started under Nixon. It started under Nixon in '72. Ehrlichman, who was Ehrlichman means truth teller, one of his two aides, Haldeman was the other one, Ehrlichman. And Ehrlichman was asked in 1990, did Nixon know that marijuana was safe? And Ehrlichman said, oh, of course he knew. Of course he knew. But he wanted to declare the drug of the hippies illegal. Same with blacks. At that point in 1972, African Americans were using heroin, but there was a committee, I think Dr. Glass was the name of the committee. It was a very well-regarded committee, and they told Nixon, no, don't criminalize marijuana, and really reduce the penalties on heroin.
Yeah, but he commissioned a study.
Yes, and then he ignored it.
He ripped it up and threw it away.
Yes, you know, the same playbook that Trump is using. Right. He's finding a group of people that he can blame for all kinds of things. Right. So if you vote for me, I'm going to save you from these things, and meanwhile, the hell with the data. The hell with the goddamn number of lives that have been ruined. Hundreds and hundreds, well, millions of people in prison since that time.
Oh, I do want to say
and no vote, too.
I do want to say this. It's very clear, you know, when you pull out your list of, you know, what most Americans vote for and support, it's very clear that overall, the majority of Americans don't actually fall for this. The majority of Americans see what's happening. The majority of Americans are very adept at processing and analyzing information, recognizing false extremist claims, and being able to differentiate them from actual information. And the only reason that this is able to work is because of the misrepresentation of voter percentages through the act of aggressive gerrymandering.
Well, also, another thing, too, the media doesn't bring to our attention. For instance, you know, income inequality is very high on the list too, and Medicare for all. You know, these are things that billionaires don't like.
Right.
But billionaires own the major media.
Well, because
millionaires
they would lose all their tax subsidies.
Yes, and they don't want that. They don't want to make.
They would lose their welfare.
Yes, and also their tax benefits. It turns out that like American families in general are spending something like $3,000 a family on tax subsidies to corporations.
Here's the funny part: the wealthiest people in America actually experience a socialist economy for themselves, while imposing individualism and crony capitalism on us. So they do get a lot of government assistance in these tax breaks and subsidies and gifts from our government. So they experience a very, and they don't complain. They clearly like socialism as long as it's their benefit and not our benefit.
How about the tax bill that went through at the end of last year?
You know, I've noticed a lot of folks, even Republicans, are starting to, at least the ones that aren't afraid of Donald Trump, are starting to really notice.
They can't run on it.
Yeah. What do we have, a $2 trillion deficit now as a result of this?
I think at least $1.5 trillion. But
we don't have.
And now what they're using it as an excuse now to go after the social safety net. To say we can't afford Social Security, we can't afford Medicare. We've done. Yeah, it's the two Santa Claus here. I mentioned that to you before. Tom Hartman talks about this a lot too. Jude Wanniski came up with this idea in the 70s, and he said, when a Democrat is in, he was a Republican, what you should say is got to balance the budget, and you force Democrats to cut down their social safety nets or not increase them as much as they should. And when a Republican is in, you blow a hole in the budget. And then you can say to Democrats when they come in, oh, you got to cut those. It's not, they are goddamn liars.
And it helps them. It helps them in another way because the immediate noticeable effect when Republicans enact the type of economics that they support, the immediate effect, it appears that everything's doing well. It looks like everybody's doing better. It takes time before the detriment starts to show. And by that time, they're out of office. A Democrat is in and say, look what the Democrat did. And you know, it's so funny that they call themselves fiscal conservatives. It's the complete opposite. It's the absolute opposite.
And the media knows it too. And the media knows
conservative. I love how they're called liberal media, but they're quite conservative.
No, but they lie. For instance, with Obama, they kept saying to Obama, "Tell us, President Obama, why can't you do well with the Republicans?" And I heard so many years too that it's Obama's fault. Obama, I criticized him mightily, and I still do, and even worse now than before. He did not name and shame. He did not take names and kick butt. When on his inauguration day, the first inauguration, while he and Michelle were dancing at about 3 or 4 balls, there at the Caucus Room restaurant in Washington, D.C., you had 17 of the top Republicans who said, we will block him at every stance. Whatever he is for, we are opposed.
Automatically.
Yes, and there was a debate several months after that at one of the Koch brother mansions, and there were 2 people who debated, and one was Cornyn, and Cornyn, senator from Texas, a real jerk too, but even worse was Jim DeMint, and a really, really right-winger. And Cornyn said, no, you know, maybe we should go along with Obama if he says things we agree with. And DeMint said, no. Whatever Obama is for, if we were for it, you know, at first, we will be opposed to it. And so it was.
It's not about the policy, it's not about the issues.
No,
it was image and conflict.
And also, the press knew this, and they have said, "Oh, Obama, why couldn't you get along?" I tear my hair out of this. Well, I don't have enough hair anyway. And they knew this. It just goes on and on and on. You know, both sides do it, right? Both sides equally bad. Both sides equally no.
Oh, and it really should not be a mystery, though, and it shouldn't be a surprise because the policies that the right wing tend to adopt benefit those that are wealthy and those that are in power, and the owners of these large media companies are wealthy and in power, so they see the benefit from this. It's not in their best interest to promote, you know, actual good practice economics and good practice tax systems and good practice policies, because they themselves would get hurt. So Why would they want to act against themselves?
You know, I should think if I was going to be in office, actually, I was elected, thank you for precinct person, so thanks for everyone who was foolish. No, I'm going to enjoy that. That was great. Thank you very much. But, you know, if you're going to run for office, it should not be on the basis of enriching yourself.
No.
I think it was Hoover who said that he ran on the issue of more, it might have been Coolidge, more government, more business in government, less government in business. And those administrations just tanked. Right. We need regulation, like we need Glass-Steagall Act, like we need control on the banks, like we need all these other things, the regulations that you're saying, for protection of the people.
Right.
And, you know, but we have never seen as larcenous a group of people like this. We have never seen such agreement among the people that steal and steal and steal and really shove the people lower, the average person lower and lower. We don't care about your Medicare. We don't care about your... one of the wonderful, wonderful articles is that of Larry Beinhart, who says that if you want a stable government, what you need is to have the top marginal tax rate 50% or more. If it's less than 50%, then you have too much churning of the water. You have boom and bust cycles. And now our lowest taxes under Trump, I think, are like 14%, especially if you're in realtor and you pass-through kind of thing. But
I wonder why he likes to help out the realtors so much.
Yeah, I don't know. Conflict of interest much, your monuments cause?
You know, it's interesting that the times that we experienced some of the best economic results were when the marginal tax rates were highest, up to 90% at times.
Yes, 91. And this one is Bruce Bartlett, who had been an economist for Reagan. And he said, you know, I helped create the GOP tax myth. Trump is wrong. Tax cuts don't equal growth. And what he pointed out was right after Clinton raised the tax rate, it was the biggest boom cycle in a hell of a long time. And, you know, you think about it, too. What that does is it takes money out of the pockets of the really rich.
Who don't spend it.
And it gives them to the pockets of the not-so-rich.
Who spend it.
Yeah, and so therefore you have what they call aggregate demand.
Right.
And aggregate demand means that businesses make money, small shops make money, and so on too. But
people buy houses, people go on vacations, people spend money on recreational expenses, people have disposable income at that point.
Yep. And that's what creates the booming country. I mean, it's economy, not just parking money with the rich and trickle down.
This isn't philosophical. This is, I mean, we've experienced
practical.
This.
It's proven.
This has happened. We can look back at numbers and point to them
Except
and show how this works.
The press, the media ignore it. At once, I mean, it was. I saw Stephanie Ruhle at one point said, you know, briefly hint, you know, I don't think tax cuts really contribute to growth. Well, they do have a short-term stimulus, as you say, a very brief one, but it fades away.
Right.
And Bush's tax cuts were abysmal. I just drove up the deficits like crazy.
Yep.
But yeah, that just does not work. It has never worked.
No.
But the thing that does work is aggregate demand, and what you want, demand economies put money in people's pockets so they can spend it and just generate. So that is the tide that rises all boats.
You know, a healthy economy is all about circulation.
Yep.
A healthy economy must be where money moves up, turns, comes down, goes back through, around and around and around. And, you know, you look at someone like, you know, the richest folks, like a Jeff Bezos, right? He's worth however many billions of dollars. And he's worth that much because he has it and he's not spending on anything.
Well, wait, how many pair of pants does he need, do you think?
7?
Yeah, well, maybe let's give him 70 or 100. But if you took his money and you gave it to other people, everyone would want pants and dresses and shoes and so on too.
You give that $9 billion to 100 million people, and now these 100 million are going out and spending money, and it goes into the system, it goes through taxes, the government gets its little cut, the business get their cut, your local town education system gets its cut, the police department, the fire department, and it just goes around and around. You know, it's just like, when you think of like an ecosystem, it's this big, you know, the circle, we call it the circle of life. It's the same thing in an economy. It is unhealthy if it is a giant pyramid scheme, which is what it is right now. When all the money is funneled to this one location, eventually there's going to be no money left to funnel, and that's when you have, you know, the bottom economic classes really struggling, having a hard time, and not living the kind of life that you'd expect to see in a nation with as much wealth and infrastructure and technology and growth as we have.
I have a little headline here. More evidence that half of the Americans are in or near poverty. And this is in BuzzFlash. One of the points made recently
like 16%?
No, 50% over half. But remember there was a statistic that said that if you have to come up with $400 in an emergency, like 40% of the American people can't do it.
Right.
They live paycheck to paycheck.
It would crush them.
Credit card to credit card, and we're spending beyond our means. And we think it's our fault. It's not our fault. The system is rigged. It is rigged, as Elizabeth Warren says.
It is preposterous to claim that the people with the least amount of power are the people that are causing the most amount of damage. That is a preposterous claim. Clearly the people that are the strongest, the wealthiest, that have the most money, the most government influence, they can only be the ones responsible. How could you, like when we back to the immigration, you're claiming that a person that crosses a border with holes in his shoes and not a dollar in his pocket and can't speak English is the cause of American strife?
Well, how about the banks blaming African Americans for causing the great debacle that, these people are taking advantage of the banks? Ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous.
They set no policy. They make no major political or regulatory decisions. How can you possibly claim that the people with the least amount of money and the least amount of power are responsible for this type of calamity?
Also the least amount of knowledge about banking. If I go into a banker, I expect, foolishly, I guess now, that the banker will act in my best interest. But it's incredible.
But if anything's good, it's completely we did it. This went well. Dow raised. This is because of us. If something goes bad, or it's because of that little guy down
Obama,
there.
It's also,
a brown person, an immigrant, a poor person.
Their fault.
Look at this person. It's their fault. Hate them.
Just like Goering.
It's preposterous.
Just like Goering. Just like Goering. Hey, we are Progressive Radio on TV. We are here the first Tuesday of the month, and from 8 to 9. And this building is 1101 Jackson Street, Oregon City. And once again, if you have an idea for a show, if you want to find out how to operate a camera, if you want to see the digs for the kitchen here and please come on down. Wonderful, wonderful place. Willamette Falls Community Media Center, they are, 1101 Jackson Street, Oregon City, 503-650-0198. I mean, boy, the time just went. You want a couple more dump fires, but we got to go. Name one.
Ooh.
There's so many.
Nobody got time for that.
I think Rachel Maddow last night was talking about how Trump's people are now putting kids that are sick into what they call cold boxes, and I think that's a further attempt to make sure that they cry and so on. It's just.
How about real quick?
Sure.
The measles outbreak right here in Portland. So someone has been diagnosed with the measles here up in Portland. They estimate that about 500 people have been exposed. And this is something that we eradicated a long time. This is very contagious. It can live in the air that someone with the disease has left hours ago. But it's very, very
dangerous, can be.
It's very dangerous, and we've already beaten this. And this is a result of this anti-vax movement, which is absolutely absurd.
It might also be more Democrats or liberals are interested in the anti-vaxxers are concerned. If you have a large auditorium, you have one person cough in it at the beginning of whatever the arena event is, by the end of that arena, everyone has breathed the air and can contract measles.
And it mostly affects small.
Oh my God, we gotta come back. Oh my God, no. Holy Jesus. Oh.